Mr. Davis had been a mechanic for more years than he cared to count. A man in his late 70s, with hands that had seen countless engines, and eyes that still sparkled with the kind of knowledge you can only get from decades of experience. He ran a small, modest garage tucked in a quiet corner of the city, the kind of place you wouldn't notice unless you were looking for it. The sign hanging above the door had long since lost its fresh coat of paint, but it still read Davis Auto Repair in bold letters, a name that meant something to the locals. While some younger mechanics had moved on to bigger shops and flashier vehicles, Mr. Davis had stayed true to his roots, repairing cars the old-fashioned way. His shop was cluttered with tools, spare parts, and old manuals, each with its own story to tell. He'd seen the car industry change from carburetors to computers, from metal bodies to plastic panels, and while some of the newer technology baffled him, he'd always found a way to keep up. There wasn't a car that came into his shop that he couldn't fix, no matter how modern or how old. But what truly set Mr. Davis apart from the younger generation of mechanics was his reputation. He wasn't just a mechanic, he was a fixture in the neighborhood. People came to him not only because of his skill, but because of his honesty and no-nonsense attitude. If you needed something fixed and he couldn't do it, he'd tell you straight up. No games, no upselling, just the truth. Despite his many years in the business, he still had a passion for what he did. Every time a car rolled in, his eyes lit up with the same enthusiasm he'd had when he was a young man. He didn't do it for the money, he did it because he loved working with his hands, solving problems, and bringing a car back to life. It wasn't just about turning wrenches for Mr. Davis. It was about the satisfaction of seeing a car run perfectly again after all the hard work. It was on an ordinary Tuesday, just like any other day, when the car that would change everything pulled into his shop, a car so sleek and shiny that it almost seemed out of place among the rusted old vehicles parked outside. Mr. Davis didn't think much of it at first. After all, he worked on all kinds of cars, from vintage classics to the latest high-end models. But this car had a story all its own. The car rolled into Mr. Davis's shop slowly, its engine purring with that smooth, almost too perfect sound that you'd expect from a luxury sports car. At first, Mr. Davis didn't think anything of it. Cars came in and out of his shop all the time. Some of them new, some of them old, some of them barely running. But this was something special. It gleamed in the morning sun, its deep black paint almost shining like a mirror. The sleek lines and high-end look made it stand out even among the more refined vehicles he had worked on before. He wiped his hands on a rag, taking a moment to appreciate the craftsmanship. This wasn't the kind of car that usually came through his door, but he'd fixed everything from rusted trucks to luxury sedans in his time, so he wasn't intimidated. He walked over, ready to get a closer look, when the car door opened, and a man stepped out, tall, wearing sunglasses and with that calm, almost serene demeanor. As the man removed his sunglasses, Mr. Davis felt his heart skip a beat. It was Keanu Reeves. Mr. Davis, not one to be easily starstruck, didn't flinch. He'd worked on all kinds of cars for years, some of them belonging to local celebrities or businessmen, but there was something different about seeing someone so familiar, someone whose movies he'd seen on the big screen, standing right in front of him. Keanu smiled at him, his voice smooth as he spoke. "Hey, I think I've got an issue with the car. It's making some strange noise. Think you can take a look?" Mr. Davis just nodded, trying to keep his cool. He wasn't here to talk movies. He was here to fix a car. "Sure thing. Just leave the keys with me. I'll get to it right away." Keanu handed him the keys, still smiling, but Mr. Davis could tell he wasn't just any celebrity. Keanu had that down-to-earth vibe, the kind of person who didn't throw his fame around. His demeanor was humble, a far cry from the flashy persona you'd expect from someone in Hollywood. As Keanu left to grab a coffee at the nearby diner, Mr. Davis got to work. He popped the hood of the car and immediately began his inspection. There was no rush, no need to impress anyone. He'd fixed plenty of high-end cars over the years, and while this one might be worth more than the sum of everything he'd ever owned, it was just another machine in need of care. He worked his way through the engine, checking belts, fluids, and electrical components with the precision of someone who'd done it 1,000 times. But still, something about this car felt different. He couldn't quite put his finger on it. As he dug deeper into the engine, he realized this wasn't just a regular fix. It was a high-tech, finely tuned machine, requiring expert knowledge. He was impressed. The car didn't just have style, it had substance. And if there was one thing Mr. Davis knew well, it was when something was built right. After a few hours, he figured out the problem, a loose fan belt that was causing some of the noises. easy enough to fix, but the precision required meant that he had to make sure everything was done just right. The last thing he wanted was to let Keanu down. Once the work was complete, Mr. Davis cleaned up the car and parked it outside, ready for pickup. He didn't think he'd see Keanu again anytime soon. Famous people, after all, had their own busy lives. But he was content knowing that the car was in perfect working order, and he had done his job well. What he didn't know, however, was that this simple repair was just the beginning of an unexpected encounter that would leave both him and Keanu shocked a week later. Over the next few days, Mr. Davis worked on the car with the same dedication he gave to every vehicle that came into his shop, regardless of who owned it. He wasn't one to rush through jobs, even when a car like Keanu Reeves sported a high-tech engine and an expensive price tag. The car was impressive, but to Mr. Davis, it was just another machine that needed attention and care. He was methodical, examining every part of the engine. He'd worked on everything from the most basic engine designs to modern-day masterpieces, so this was just another challenge. He loved the sound of the engine humming under his hands as he tightened bolts and adjusted the fan belt. Despite the car's complexity, there was something refreshing about the mechanics of it. Keanu's car wasn't built for show. It was built for function, and Mr. Davis appreciated that. During his work, Mr. Davis couldn't help but admire the craftsmanship of the car. The attention to detail was evident: sleek, fine lines, top-of-the-line materials, and a level of precision that matched the care he took in his work. But it was the inner workings of the machine that really captured his attention. The electronics, the software, and the intricate components all required the kind of expert knowledge that he was used to. He appreciated the technology, even if it wasn't quite his specialty. As he took the car apart piece by piece, he had time to reflect on his own long career. Over the decades, he had worked on countless cars, many of them from a time when technology was simpler and mechanics relied on skill rather than computers. But he wasn't afraid of change. In fact, he thrived on it. Mr. Davis believed that the essence of a good mechanic wasn't just in knowing how to work with the tools of the past. It was about adapting, learning, and understanding the evolving needs of cars and their owners. That's why, even as the car's engine was more advanced than anything he had ever worked on, he felt that same old satisfaction when he fixed the issue. It wasn't just about fixing a fan belt. It was about bringing a piece of machinery back to life. The pride Mr. Davis took in his work hadn't diminished with age. If anything, it had grown stronger, sharper, as years of experience had honed his instincts. Once the fan belt was properly adjusted and the issue was resolved, Mr. Davis spent time ensuring every other part of the car was in top condition. He cleaned the engine and checked the alignment. He wanted everything to run as smoothly as possible. The last thing he wanted was to have Keanu come back with a complaint. He was meticulous. No job was too small, and no detail too insignificant to overlook. By the end of the day, the car was purring like new, and Mr. Davis felt a sense of satisfaction. He'd done the work right, and now he could rest easy knowing that he'd treated the car with the care it deserved. Little did he know Keanu was about to stop by, and when he did, it would be a visit neither of them would ever forget. Mr. Davis didn't think much about the reputation his shop had built over the years. It wasn't something he actively worked on, it was something earned through consistent, honest work. His customers knew they could rely on him, and word had spread throughout the neighborhood. He'd spent decades fixing cars, treating every vehicle that came through his door as if it were his own. His small shop had a charm that drew in locals, who trusted Mr. Davis to get the job done without overcharging or cutting corners. The customers who frequented his shop were a mix of old and new faces, many of whom had been bringing their cars to him for years, some even for generations. He knew the names of their children, their pets, and the stories behind the cars they drove. It wasn't just about the mechanical work, it was about building relationships with people. The garage was more than a place to fix cars. It was a place where people could talk about life, vent their frustrations, and share small moments of their day. Despite his age, Mr. Davis had the energy of a much younger man. He loved what he did, and that passion was apparent in everything he did. Even as the car industry had changed, with computers and advanced technology taking over much of the mechanical work, he didn't mind learning about the new tools and systems. It kept him on his toes, sharp, and always looking for ways to stay ahead of the curve. A regular customer, Mrs. Roberts, walked in one afternoon, greeting Mr. Davis with her usual friendly smile. She had been coming to him for years and always praised his work. "You know, Davis, I've told so many people about you," she said, leaning over the counter. "You're the best mechanic in this town. You don't just fix the car, You fix the heart of it. That's why I've been coming to you for over 20 years. Mr. Davis chuckled, wiping his hands on a rag. Just doing my job, Mrs. Roberts. If it weren't for all you folks, I'd have no reason to keep going. You've got more than enough reason, she replied with a wink. You've got skills no one else has, and people trust you. Don't forget that. Mr. Davis didn't often think of himself in terms of reputation, but he knew that his consistent, reliable service was what kept his customers coming back. People respected him not because of his age, but because he delivered on what mattered, integrity and quality. His shop had a homey feel, with old-school charm, cluttered shelves filled with tools and parts, shelves stacked with automotive manuals, and an aroma of engine oil that was more nostalgic than overpowering. As he worked on Keanu's car, Mr. Davis couldn't help but think about all the years he'd spent in this shop. He'd worked on so many different kinds of cars, rust buckets, vintage classics, and even high-end luxury cars. He'd earned the trust of his customers, which meant more to him than any flashy advertisement or social media following ever could. Keanu's car, in all its modern sophistication, was a bit out of place among the older vehicles in the shop. But to Mr. Davis, it didn't matter. It was still just a car, and he would treat it with the same respect and care he gave to every other vehicle. The quiet satisfaction of fixing a car well was the same no matter who owned it, and that was what kept him coming back to the garage day after day. What Mr. Davis didn't realize was that Keanu Reeves, a man known for his humble demeanor in Hollywood, would soon become a part of his story, unknowingly testing the limits of both his craftsmanship and his character. And when Keanu would return to collect his car, it would be a moment neither of them could have predicted, a moment that would surprise them both. As the days passed, Mr. Davis worked diligently on Keanu's car. He knew that this car wasn't just any ordinary vehicle. It had a certain sophistication and precision that required the utmost attention. He was meticulous in his work, ensuring every detail was attended to, from the tightness of the fan belt to the engine's cooling system. While the world around him was moving toward more technology-driven repairs, Mr. Davis stuck to his roots, using his hands, his years of experience, and his trusted tools to solve the problem. By the time the job was done, the car was purring like a kitten. The engine was running smoother than ever, and Mr. Davis had given the car a thorough checkup to ensure everything was in perfect shape. He didn't rush the job, no matter how much the car's value might have made it seem like a high-pressure task. It wasn't about the price tag, it was about the satisfaction of doing something well. As he wiped the grease off his hands, Mr. Davis leaned against the hood of the car and surveyed his work. The sports car now sat in his small garage, gleaming under the soft light from the overhead bulbs. There was a certain pride in finishing the job, especially when it was done right. He spent a few extra minutes tidying up the car, making sure it was clean and presentable. He wasn't sure when Keanu would be back to pick it up, but when he did, Mr. Davis wanted him to see the car in pristine condition. It wasn't just about repairing the vehicle, it was about the respect he had for the people who came to him for help, whether they were local residents or, as in this case, a Hollywood star. The shop, small and humble as it was his home away from home. It wasn't the glitzy showrooms or high-end service centers he had heard about in magazines. It wasn't even about the money. It was about the bond between a mechanic and a car. Mr. Davis had been working with cars all his life, and each one had a story, each one had a purpose, and he enjoyed helping people keep those stories alive. As he took one last look at the car, he turned off the shop lights and locked the door. He was done for the day, knowing full well that the next time Keanu came in, the car would be waiting, ready for the road. But what Mr. Davis didn't expect was that this simple routine repair would turn into a surprising encounter, one that would leave both him and Keanu wondering how a mechanic from a small-town garage could leave such a lasting impact. A week had passed since Mr. Davis had finished the repairs on Keanu's car, and he had nearly forgotten about the celebrity client. He didn't expect Keanu to come back for any kind of follow-up, as most of his customers simply picked up their cars and went on their way. But then the bell above the shop's door jingled, and in walked Keanu Reeves himself. Mr. Davis didn't immediately recognize him as the man who had brought the car in a week earlier. He didn't recognize the name, didn't associate him with any of the movies he'd watched. To Mr. Davis, Keanu was just another customer, albeit one who had an expensive car. Keanu walked in, looking relaxed in a simple jacket and jeans, a far cry from the polished Hollywood persona he often portrayed. He was the same calm, humble man Mr. Davis had encountered before. "Hey there, Mr. Davis," Keanu greeted with a smile, his voice friendly and approachable. "How's everything going?" Mr. Davis looked up from the bench where he was cleaning some tools, and a light bulb went off. He knew that name. Oh, it's you. Keanu, right? Mr. Davis smiled, offering a firm handshake. Well, I'll be. I didn't recognize you without your sunglasses and all that movie magic around you. Keanu chuckled, not at all offended. Yeah, I get that a lot, he replied, his voice light. But I wanted to come by and see how things turned out with the car. I've been driving it around for the last week, and I have to say, it's running like a dream. You really know your stuff. Mr. Davis grinned, feeling a rush of pride. Just doing my job. I'm glad you're happy with it. Took me a little longer than expected, but I wanted to make sure everything was just right. Keanu nodded, genuinely impressed. You definitely nailed it. Honestly, I don't think I've had a mechanic take as much care with my car as you did. I've had it in several places before, but they never took the time like you did. Mr. Davis waved off the compliment, somewhat embarrassed but flattered nonetheless. That's how it's supposed to be. The way I see it, every car's got a story. It's up to me to make sure it keeps running, so those stories don't end too soon. Keanu seemed to take this in, his eyes thoughtful. I like that. You've got a real passion for your work, he said with a nod of appreciation. You know, I've been thinking about all the places I've been. Celebrities get a lot of attention, and people always treat us differently, but there's something refreshing about the way you approach things. You're not trying to impress anyone, and I really respect that. Mr. Davis wasn't sure how to respond. He wasn't one for flattery, and hearing praise from someone like Keanu made him a little uncomfortable. He simply nodded, a slight smile playing on his lips. Keanu stood there for a moment, looking around the small, cluttered garage. This place, it's got character. It's real. I've been to places where they treat cars like they're just another object to fix, but here, it's like you've got a personal connection with every car you work on. That's rare. The words caught Mr. Davis off guard. He wasn't used to hearing praise, especially from someone like Keanu, but he appreciated it. He had spent his entire life working on cars, and to have that recognized, especially by someone who didn't know him from his years of service, felt like something special. Keanu looked back at him, his expression sincere. I wanted to come by and thank you, not just for fixing the car, but for doing it the right way. You got something here, Mr. Davis. I hope you know that. Mr. Davis stood there a bit stunned. He had spent his whole life doing what he loved, without the expectation of recognition. But here, in his humble shop, with a man who had seen the world and its glitz, Mr. Davis had earned something rare, a moment of acknowledgement for his craft. Keanu smiled warmly, about to leave. I'm heading out, but I'll be sure to let others know about you. Maybe we'll see each other again sometime soon. Anytime, Keanu, Mr. Davis replied, finally finding his voice. Take care of that car, and yourself. Keanu waved and headed out, leaving Mr. Davis standing in the shop, quietly contemplating the unexpected encounter. As the door closed behind him, the sound of the bell ringing faded into silence. The mechanic turned back to his workbench, but there was a new sense of pride in his chest. He didn't need fame or fortune to know he had done something right. Sometimes a little gratitude was enough. A few days later, Keanu surprised Mr. Davis once again. This time, it wasn't for a regular follow-up or repair issue. Instead, Keanu had come back to the shop with something else in mind, gift. He strolled in, carrying a small, but noticeably heavy box. Mr. Davis, I hope I'm not interrupting, Keanu said, a slight grin on his face. He walked toward the counter, setting the box down gently. Mr. Davis, wiping his hands off on his grease-stained apron, looked up with a curious expression. Not at all, Keanu. What's this? Keanu leaned on the counter, clearly excited. I thought I'd come by again and show my appreciation. What you did for that car meant a lot to me. I don't often get to meet people who take the time to truly care about something, and it was refreshing. Mr. Davis was humbled but puzzled. I just did my job. No need to get fancy with me. Keanu nodded, clearly respecting that sentiment. It's more than just fixing a car. You're the kind of person who values craftsmanship and respect for your work, and that's something I don't come across often. I wanted to thank you properly. Keanu opened the box, revealing a beautifully crafted tool set. It was clear it wasn't just any set, it was custom-made, with each tool engraved with Mr. Davis's initials. The tools gleamed in the light, and the set was organized meticulously, each piece perfectly placed. The craftsmanship was extraordinary, designed for someone who appreciated quality. Mr. Davis stood there, momentarily speechless. He hadn't expected anything like this. Keanu, I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything, Keanu responded, a warm smile on his face. I know you're not the kind of guy who works for rewards or recognition, but I wanted to make sure you had something that matched the level of care you give to every car that comes through your shop. Mr. Davis felt a lump form in his throat. He wasn't accustomed to receiving gifts, especially not something this generous. The weight of it hit him. Keanu wasn't just some Hollywood actor. He was a man who saw value in the little things, in the people who did their jobs with integrity. Mr. Davis realized in that moment that Keanu didn't just appreciate his work. He saw something in him that most people overlooked. Genuine honesty, kindness, and dedication. I didn't expect this at all, Mr. Davis said, his voice a little shaky from the surprise. He picked up one of the tools, turning it over in his hand. This is more than I could have ever hoped for. Keanu laughed softly. I know it's a bit over the top, but I wanted to show you that I see the person behind the tools. You're not just fixing cars, you're keeping something valuable alive, real craftsmanship, something that's hard to come by these days. Mr. Davis nodded, feeling a sense of gratitude and disbelief. He had worked hard all his life, and while he had never expected recognition or wealth, it meant something deeper to have someone recognize the value of his work. Thank you, Keanu, Mr. Davis said, finally able to express his feelings. This really means a lot. More than you know. Keanu smiled again, putting his hand on Mr. Davis's shoulder. It's the least I could do. You've earned it. As Keanu left the shop that day, Mr. Davis felt an overwhelming sense of appreciation, not just for the gift, but for the kindness and respect Keanu had shown him. It was a reminder that in a world that often overlooked the value of small, hard-working people, there were still those who saw the worth in craftsmanship, respect, and genuine hard work. Keanu had left behind more than just a gift. He had left a lasting impression on a man who had spent a lifetime quietly perfecting his craft, reminding him that there's always value in the work you do, no matter how big or small. And for Mr. Davis, that was more than enough. Keanu's gift wasn't the only thing that had left a lasting impression on Mr. Davis. As the days went by, Mr. Davis reflected on the conversation they had shared, the bond they had formed without even trying. Keanu wasn't like most of the people Mr. Davis had encountered in his years of working on cars. Sure, he had fixed cars for plenty of high-profile clients in the past, but none of them had ever taken the time to understand him, to respect his craft, or to genuinely appreciate the kind of work he did. It wasn't just the tool set. It was the way Keanu had spoken to him, the way he treated him like a person rather than a service provider. Mr. Davis had spent so many years in his shop fixing cars for all kinds of people, but it was rare that anyone truly took the time to see him. Keanu had done that. He had made him feel seen, appreciated, and valued in a way that most people didn't bother with. One afternoon, as Mr. Davis was tinkering with a vintage engine that had been sitting in his shop for a while, the door opened again. He didn't look up immediately, thinking it was just another regular customer. But then he heard a familiar voice. Mr. Davis? Got a minute. It was Keanu again, standing in the doorway with his ever-friendly smile. But this time, there was something different in his demeanor. He wasn't just here to pick up the car or drop off a gift. There was a more personal, almost reflective look in his eyes. Keanu, what brings you back here today? Mr. Davis asked, wiping his hands on a rag, though he was already anticipating the conversation might be more than just a quick chat. Keanu stepped inside, looking around at the familiar clutter of the shop. He seemed at ease in the space, a world away from the luxury of his Hollywood lifestyle. I've been thinking about something, Keanu began, pausing to take in the surroundings. You know, after I left here last week, I realized I've had some incredible people help me along the way. People who've made a real difference in my life, even if they didn't know it. But what you've done, what you do, it's something different. You've been at this for so long, and you do it because you love it, not for recognition or fame. And I admire that. Mr. Davis was taken aback by his words. Well, I just fix cars, Keanu. It's what I've always done. Never thought it was anything special. Keanu smiled gently, shaking his head. That's exactly the point. You do make it special. And it's rare. People don't always stop and appreciate those kinds of things, but I wanted you to know that I see it. I understand the importance of that. I don't take it for granted. Mr. Davis felt a lump in his throat, unsure of how to respond. He had never been one for praise, and this wasn't something he had ever expected to hear. But it felt good. It felt like a moment of real connection, something that went beyond the normal transactions he'd had in his life. Keanu wasn't just a celebrity saying thanks out of obligation. He was genuinely moved by the work Mr. Davis did. Keanu continued, his tone sincere. I've been thinking about this for a while now, and I want to offer you something. You've given me so much more than just a repair. You've reminded me of the value of hard work, of sticking with what you're passionate about. And that's something I want to support. At this point, Mr. Davis was entirely curious. What are you getting at, Keanu? He asked. Keanu reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out an envelope, handing it over to Mr. Davis. It's not much, but I wanted to help out with the shop. You've got a lot of great years ahead of you, and you deserve to have everything you need to keep doing what you love. This is a small way of showing my appreciation. Mr. Davis opened the envelope slowly, his hands trembling a little. Inside, there was a check, one that far exceeded anything he could have imagined. It was a generous amount, enough to cover several years of rent for the shop or to invest in new equipment. Keanu, this. I don't know what to say, Mr. Davis stammered, feeling overwhelmed by the gesture. You don't have to say anything, Keanu replied with a gentle smile. I just wanted you to know that what you do matters. More than you think. You've got something special here, Mr. Davis. I know it might not seem like much in a world full of fast cars and flashing lights, but your work, your craftsmanship, that's something rare. It deserves to be recognized. Mr. Davis was speechless, looking at the check and then back at Keanu. The shop had always been his lifeblood, and now for the first time in years, he didn't have to worry about its future. He could focus entirely on what he loved doing most, fixing cars, sharing stories, and continuing his craft without the constant weight of financial stress. Thank you, Keanu, Mr. Davis said softly. I'll never forget this. You've done more for me than you can imagine. Keanu nodded, his expression warm but quiet. You've already done a lot for me, Mr. Davis. This is just my way of paying it forward. And as Keanu turned to leave the shop, Mr. Davis realized that, sometimes, the people who truly make a difference in our lives aren't the ones we expect. Keanu wasn't just a celebrity, he was a man who saw value in the simple, everyday work that most people overlooked. It was a reminder that kindness and gratitude could come from the most unexpected places, and that made all the difference in the world. In the weeks that followed, something remarkable happened. Keanu didn't just disappear back into his busy Hollywood life after the gift and the generous gesture. He actually started visiting Mr. Davis more regularly, not for car repairs or business, but just to hang out. Sometimes, Keanu would drop by to chat about life, share stories, or simply sit quietly in the shop while Mr. Davis worked. It was clear that the connection they had formed had grown into something deeper, something beyond just a customer and mechanic. Mr. Davis was surprised at first, but the more Keanu came by, the more he realized how rare it was for someone to genuinely want to connect with him for reasons beyond fixing a car. Keanu was different. He didn't seek attention or praise. He just appreciated Mr. Davis's work and his way of life. It wasn't just about the repair anymore. It was about sharing time, stories, and experiences. Keanu would occasionally bring coffee or snacks for Mr. Davis while he worked, sitting on the bench in the corner, quietly observing or offering a helping hand when needed. And while Mr. Davis had lived a life of solitude in many ways, something about Keanu's presence made the shop feel fuller, warmer. One afternoon, as the sun began to set and Mr. Davis was tinkering with the car's engine, Keanu stood by the door, watching him work. You know, Keanu said, breaking the silence, I've been thinking about something. You really don't get enough credit. The kind of work you do, it's like an art form. People come and go, but you've been doing this for so long, and there's something to be said for that kind of dedication. Mr. Davis paused, wiping his hands on a rag. He looked over at Keanu, who was leaning against the doorframe with a thoughtful expression. I'm just an old mechanic, Keanu. It's not glamorous work. Keanu shook his head with a smile. That's where you're wrong. What you do is real. It's honest. And that's more important than any fame or glory. The two of them stood there for a moment, letting the words sink in. Mr. Davis had always seen his work as a humble craft, something he did because it was what he loved. But hearing Keanu's perspective made him realize that maybe he had been too modest all these years. There was value in doing something well, in dedicating yourself to something that mattered, no matter how small or unnoticed it seemed. As the conversation drifted into other topics, cars, movies, and life in general, Mr. Davis couldn't help but feel a deep sense of gratitude for this unexpected friendship. It was a friendship built on respect, not fame or fortune. Keanu had shown him that sometimes the most valuable relationships aren't the ones that come with grand gestures, but those that develop slowly over time with simple acts of kindness and shared moments. A few weeks later, Keanu invited Mr. Davis to a small gathering at his home, something he rarely did for anyone. "I want you to meet some of my friends, the people who understand the importance of hard work and craftsmanship. You'll fit right in." Mr. Davis was hesitant at first. He wasn't used to attending events like that, but Keanu insisted, saying, "You've earned it, Davis. You've shown me something I didn't even realize I was missing in my life." That night at Keanu's house, Mr. Davis felt like a part of something bigger. Surrounded by creative and humble individuals who shared the same values, he realized that the world was full of people who understood the importance of work done with passion and integrity. Keanu had brought him into a circle of people who didn't care about who he was or what he did for a living. They respected him for his character, his values, and his craftsmanship. As Mr. Davis looked around the room, he couldn't help but smile. It wasn't just about cars anymore. It was about connections, about the simple, meaningful relationships that were formed not through status or wealth, but through mutual respect and understanding. In the end, Mr. Davis realized that what Keanu had given him wasn't just a tool set or a generous gift. It was the reminder that real value comes not from fame or fortune, but from the work you do, the integrity you uphold, and the people you choose to surround yourself with. And with that, Mr. Davis knew that his life had been richer, not just for the cars he had fixed, but for the friendship he had gained.